suppose I should get this open down here. Welcome, everyone, this evening. Yeah, we are back. I am starting up the third quarter, finally. It's only been, what, 3 weeks now since it's technically started. Do I have a VPN turned on? I do want to make sure that's not the case. I don't. Okay, so we're all good. Yeah, technically this is the 1, 2, 3. This is the fourth week. I theoretically should have been talking about July releases, but I just know I just wasn't feeling it or whatever for the first part of the month. And I'll be honest, even though there's a lot of music, I've been managing to get through it pretty quickly. So obviously tomorrow is the last day of July, so obviously next week's going to be July music anyway. But I've kind of pushed things back a little bit, so we'll be talking July music for the next few weeks. And let me just make sure my headphones are connected. They are. Excellent. Okay, yeah, we have 10 releases this evening. I got all the categories covered. We got electronic music, we got a little rap and hip hop, we do have some kind of like indie pop, and we have some rock and metal, and then we got another one, kind of doesn't fit in those 4 traditional categories. So, yeah, we will just get, let me make sure that the audio is on. Yeah, we'll get right to it. And, hey, all right, I think we're good there. So, I guess I put that away. And Spotify works. I don't know if all of the artwork will be loaded all the way through. It is possible that it will not, but if that's the case, I have the files up somewhere. Close the file. Doesn't matter. Anyway, yeah, we're going to start with some of the electronic music. This is the EP Bleach Grooves from the artist Etrigan. Not too much to say, just kind of techno. Feels really high speed at first. Not like super high speed, but it's pretty fast and energetic at first. But there's this kind of contradictory groove in here. It's kind of hyperactive, but also laid back at the same time. The Etrigan is a house DJ at one of the clubs here in Moscow, Random. So it kind of helps put that music in context a little bit. It's the kind of music that would probably go pretty hard in a club. So just keep that in mind. Album artwork is about what you would expect it to be. I'm gonna get ahead a little bit because it's techno music. It is a little bit repetitive. It's typically about getting into the groove and just kind of finding it, but there was the transition. So this kind of was the kind of contradictory nature. It's that really fast, kind of four to the floor techno out the gate, and then in a lot of tracks there are these switch up moments, which again, if you think of it in the context of a club, makes a little bit more sense. You have those swells and dips in the energy, but there's something here. There's something here, right? I'm gonna click over to another one here. like the BPM's really high, but if you kind of like sync up with what's in the background, there's like kind of full speed and half speed, full time, double time, or whatever. It's been a while. This feels like it would, like, it's designed for a club, so, or like a, I don't know. It feels like it's designed for a live show, which, so yeah, we're gonna start out with something like that. It's a little bit different. We don't get a lot of that kind of club techno, but every once in a while, there is something that does kind of light up on my radar, and yeah, pretty solid. So that's the EP Bleach Grooves by the artist there, Etrigan. Moving on, we get into some hip hop here. This is the artist Artur Kreem with the EP Trauma Dump. Now, Artur Kreem, I will go ahead and get the album artwork open there. This is a rapper out of Ufa who long ago, if I'm not mistaken, like 20 years ago at this point in time, relocated to the Bay Area in the United States, if I got that correct. But he continued making music in Russian. He's like been active on the scene. This is he actually released an album last year with another artist. This is his first kind of solo output in a while. And yeah, we got 5 tracks here. Very, very laid back. The flow is laid back. It's got these like old school funky beats. Feels, I think, like they're live instruments, or at least it sounds like that. And there are some pretty good lines in the actual rap. I feel like earlier this year I mentioned an album that reminded me of Chance the Rapper's Acid Rap. This has that same energy as well, in my opinion, which I think is great. It's like perfect for the summer.
Жару не любишь, ты давай не трогай соус. Тошно мне смотреть, когда у плиты стоит оболтус. И я хуй буду эту хуйню проверять на горькость. Где мой спутниковый телефон? I'm calling my шеф-повар. У него есть секрет соус. Вкусным будет даже голубь. 33 звезды Мишлена. Эти стейки из покрышки ты промакиваешь хлебом. Паром дышишь от подливки. Консоме из топора. Соус прячет все ошибки. Ща достанем все приправы. Чуть присыпем прахом лохов. Замешаем на бульоне из скелетов долбоебов. И вообще, бля, без облома. Наше шоу станет кулинарным после жирного чека от Газпрома, ну еще бы. Игнорировать рецепт наш невозможно, в нем есть даже порох и пригоршня. Твоя язва охуеет точно, сразу вырастает 3-я почка. Тебе не сладко через вкусные точки.
Я не слышно двигаюсь, как буква S. Stone Island is the Russian equivalent to G's move in silence, like lasagna. And I'm kind of messing that up, but that's from the 6 foot, 7 foot from Lil Wayne, like back in the day. It's one of those lines that obviously, like, this is pretty much a biting of that, but it's done so well and kind of like so openly at the beginning that I'm going to have to assume it is a nod to the Lil Wayne line there. It's, I move in silence like the S in Stone Island. Now, granted, there are 2 S's in the phrase Stone Island, so he didn't do the best job there, but it's still pretty solid. It's not bad.
Я стою в тени высокой пальмы неприкаянной. Под солнцем Аризоны щурюсь. Вправе от Армани. Чем лучше я смотрюсь, тем больше я на грани. Жду виски на подносе от старой плейбой бани. По возможности проявляю сострадание, правосудие вершу на дементами. Без колебания, ты не подумай, что проблемы флайбами.
I mean, just listening to the music, I don't think it's a hard, like, it's not a stretch of the imagination to this is an artist who has been living in the States, especially California, for the last few decades, right? Like, there's something very kind of like old rap from the States, like from about 20 years ago, maybe even a little bit earlier, to be honest. There's even a closing track that is basically just, there's like a little bit of rapping, but then it's just him doing that thing like on a lot of those older rap albums where the artist just kind of like talks over the track and shouts out different people and just like, I don't know, stream of consciousness type stuff, which my favorite example of that would always be my first song on Jay-Z's The Black album, right? Like that's I don't know, I still love that. But I do appreciate that when I hear that on releases, because it's like, you take what is basically a really nice little beat or instrumental, and instead of just kind of tossing it away for a really short track, you just kind of give this, you let it ride out, but you also give yourself a little time with the artist, and I don't know, it just humanizes everything. So yeah, it's a short release. None of the songs are really long. They're all kind of simple and straightforward, but it's really about just the atmosphere it creates. And again, it is like, I feel like in 2026, for better or worse, there really isn't a clear direction that rap and hip hop is moving in any country right now, at least that I'm familiar with. I feels like it's kind of rudderless in the States, and it feels like in Russia it's basically the same thing, because a lot of times Russia is kind of seeing what else is going on out there. And with that being the case, it feels like we're either, when we're talking about like interesting releases in rap and hip hop, it's either stuff that's really kind of out in left field and doing something that's just kind of nutty in a way, like Archive Core from last year, which was the SoundCloud rap where it was like really distorted and kind of like hyper pop in its own way. Or what we see here, which is this, or these are releases which are just very, very reverential to classics of a specific era, which we are going to get to later in the program, both Archive Core and that level of reverence in one single release. So, but yeah, I don't see anything. I haven't really seen anything in a while that set off this specific, node of nostalgia, musical nostalgia. So I don't know. It does feel like the type of album for late summer, kind of lounging in a chair, right, under a tree or in an umbrella, next to a pool if you have one, but just sort of just very laid back, very relaxed, low energy. So that is the album Trauma Dump, the EP Trauma Dump from Artur Kreem. And then the final EP we're going to talk about, this is Nie Бойся, Don't Be Afraid, from ZNICHKA. This is one of those like noun adjective salads, so you can just kind of mix and match, change the order how you want. Indie electro pop folk, or it's like maybe indie electro folk, but it's a kind of like pop folk. It's not folk. Anyway, it's like indie electronic folk that is more pop. You get the idea. Maybe not. It strikes a nice balance between all of those descriptives. It's got these like heavy electro pop bass lines and instrumental backings that feel more like they're designed for these kind of dancey electro pop tracks. but then the singing is done in a more traditional folksy approach, and the instruments that are added in for flair are like the traditional folk Russian instruments. Like you can hear the singing and the instruments right here at the start, right? And there's the bass and the synth line right there. That kind of feels like it's electro pop. But it works really well together. Like, now, granted, this isn't anything new necessarily. There are a number of, especially female artists, who are doing music in this same vein, but like Polna Любви or Polna Любви, but her music is still a little bit different. It's either more like indie folk with the electronic stuff a little bit, not as much. This is a little bit different still from what we've encountered in the past. So. And if we go to the title track, we can get a little bit more of that.
Темной ночью, но слезы не проронив, только страх сковало сердце, еще рано хоронить. В темном поле черный ворон все летал, кружил над ним, а уста сомкнулись молча, воротись, не уходи. Я буду помнить про тебя, любить я буду до конца.
This is where that indie pop sound comes in a little bit more, right? Like, yeah. That's why I went with so many of those descriptives. But I think this is her first. No. Yeah. This is. It says EPs, but like she basically just released all of the songs that are on this current one. So this is the artist's first release of any form. So we'll kind of keep. I don't know. I'll keep my eyes open for the next time she comes around. We'll see. Hopefully we get something a little bit more substantive. But something different, something interesting. I do feel like the imagery here does fit a little bit better with the time of the year with this music. Like this feels not necessarily summery. There is something a little bit cold in the sound, and a lot of these songs were released, as I understand, over the course of like last autumn into the winter, and that with the title track, she just kind of bundled them all together into this little EP. So that there is something to be said for that. Atmospheric-wise, it does feel a little colder, but it's still a nice little EP that is, again, kind of like electro, indie, folk, pop, something or other. That's the EP Ni Boysia. and the artist is ZNICHKA. All right, now we move on to something that we come up. This is the one that doesn't really fit into any of the categories. This is the album Long Way from the group Rainy Day in Kyoto. It's a jazz album, kind of putting it here basically in the middle. Not really in the middle, but, you know, towards the front. A third of the way through. To break things up a little bit here, kind of throw us off our regular routine. This is a group out of Kyiv and St. Petersburg, so some geographic diversity there. I don't know if they're actually like from Kyiv and they've relocated to St. Petersburg, or if it's split. I didn't really get enough information. It doesn't really matter. They've described their album as a story of a strong surge of emotions, worries, and joyous moments of life, where the abstract forms of a small city, the reflections of business signs in evening puddles, the love of a thunderstorm from within a cozy room, and the fear of changing yourself in the habitual, all is reflected in each note. Very kind of pretentious for a press release. It's just kind of like a little darker, but not like super dark. It's a jazz, right? And, you know, again, we don't get like a ton of releases. There actually are more than you would expect. But yeah, it's just like it's nice every once in a while. I don't know. I kind of like having it in the rotations when it does pick up. And it actually will be interesting because I feel like at the end of the year, we'll have probably talked about like 6 or 7 jazz albums. It would actually be interesting to kind of look back and attempt to figure out which one of those is somehow better than the rest. It's been a long time. Yeah, you know, did the whole jazz thing in high school a little bit. Don't really think about it too much anymore these days. But yeah, and then we got the album artwork. Pretty straightforward. It's always hard, like, I always talk about this with drone albums, right? Like drone albums where the tracks are really long and it's, you know, just like a mood that you get into. Jazz albums are kind of the same way. Like, this is one of those albums that I would just put on over the last week. Actually, I think even before the last week. And you just like put it on and you go about, do your work or I don't know, cook something or eat something. It's jazz music. It's just one of those types of music that, I don't know. Don't want to say that you can't actively listen to it, but it does feel like it's just more about putting you in a specific mood. What's up, little stupid? Привет. Fortuna 812, по-моему, там он пока не выпустил никакого альбома, так что в прошлом году Fortuna 812 definitely had an album. We talked about it last year, but I don't think Fortuna has done anything yet this year. I haven't seen it. Yeah. With Clayt Carter. Yeah. I'm not going to spend too much time on the jazz album here. Again, it's just one of those albums that it's... What I will say, no offense to Rainy Day in Kyoto, this is not the most groundbreaking jazz album I've heard so far this year. This is also the group's first release, so, you know, kind of keep that in mind too. But with I don't know, it just sometimes it's nice to have it in there. I enjoyed it. It's nice to have a little bit of some stuff there. And I feel like jazz releases on the whole don't get much coverage anywhere. Like it's very much a very niche musical society. Like I know they have jazz festivals all over the, you know, like they have the Moscow Jazz Festival. They've got jazz festivals in every single country and in lots of big cities. But I feel like it's just one of those things that most people don't really go to, or the ones that do go to it are just going to like have a picnic and I don't know. So anyway, if you're needing something that's got like some good laid back energy, but also a little bit of, I can't snap this evening for whatever, a little bit of pep in it, then check out Long Way Here from Rainy Day in Kyoto. So, and I always think it always, you know, for a debut, that's fine, especially if they're working between Kirov and St. Petersburg. It's a little way away, but okay. Jumping away from that, we are now into a little bit of the kind of rock and metal end of things. This is the mini album here, "Не все дома," from the group Take Me Home. This is a like new metalcore, I guess, group out of Bryansk. And my favorite jazz song, it's a good question, a little stupid. I'm not a huge jazz person, so what I can say is there is one group from here, I think in Moscow actually, that I will share here in just a little bit, that I do really enjoy their work. I think they're really good, but give me a second here and I'll get to that in just a second. It's like a pretty solid release, right? It's a short one, 9 songs, 27 minutes, that type of thing. It's a little bit of a mini here. I was listening to this and I was thinking of it in the terms of McDonald's, right? At least in 2026, it's the musical equivalent of McDonald's, right? It's kind of like, it's got like a tasty little aspect to it, something that you crave every once in a while, especially like you catch that scent or you hear the first licks to a song. And you know, it's probably not going to be like the best thing for you. It's probably not going to be the most satisfying thing, but like you still kind of enjoy it the whole time that you're taking it in. That's kind of this album. It's not like the best thing ever. It's not the type of album that is going to stay with you for a long time or even like kind of be super filling in a artistic musical way, but it's kind of enjoyable. It's fun. It's just kind of light and, you know, let me just get into it. Like, it's got all of the trappings of nu metal, but the kind of more modern take on metalcore. It's got like more modern core, at least like in the sort of everything post-Architects realistically has kind of moved into this like heavier, gentler sound. It's also got like a really kind of modern, straightforward piece of album artwork too, at least for like a metal group like this, but got the scratching in there, so yeah. Like, I don't know, like as somebody, again, as somebody who grew up in that era of nu metal and stuff like this, I listen to this, I'm just like, yeah, it's kind of like, it's kind of simple, it's kind of like whatever, but it's kind of fun, right? Again, McDonald's. or fast food, and any type of fast food. A little stupid, yeah. I talked about cup size, I think 3 weeks ago. So, I've actually talked about 3 of Cup Size's albums now. The 2 from last year, and then Zastav Меня Плакать not long ago. So, I mean, you get the idea at this point in time. So yeah, new metalcore, it is doing a very specific thing. I don't know, I had fun with it. Is it one of those releases that I'm just gonna be like, yeah, that was like top tier stuff? No, but I mean, that's okay too, right? And in 2026, the sheer amount of music that's out there is overwhelming. And when you get something that is maybe not super memorable, but also still like kind of fun, well executed, there's something to be said for that. So this is the kind of mini album here, Не все дома, from the group Take Me Home. Now I do want to real quick answer Lil Stupid's question. He was asking about favorite jazz song. I don't have a favorite jazz song, but for, to answer his question, and for anyone who is on the jazz thing, this is a group that, because of my internet connection, the way it works, like I can't load the videos. This is a jazz group, or the pictures, sorry. This is a jazz group out of Moscow. I talked about them last year. I can actually just go to Yandex Music, because these will open. And yeah, Skywalker by Jazz House Trio was one that came out last year. I think it's like still just like a really good phenomenon. It's got like some Charlie Brown vibes going on, but quite good too. So with regards to Shala Pay, I usually check out those types of things at the end of the stream. So we got a few more albums to get through, but I will kind of keep that loaded up. Okay, moving on. We do have another group that kind of has a kind of rock or metal sound similar to what we saw with Take Me Home. This is the album Waiting Room from the group Chrome FM. This is actually a duo out of Vladivostok. But they're not doing like the new metal / metalcore thing. They have more of the alt metal shoegaze sound. It's the type of music that we lovingly refer to in 2026 as Deftones core. So now, not all of their songs sound like Deftones, but when you're listening to this, you will get enough of that like kind of classic, more modern Deftones sound. So let me just go ahead and get us started here. Also has the very, not to say that it's like reminiscent of White Pony at all. It's not. Like this one right here is definitely more of the alt metal sound, right? But the distortion on the vocals, the rhythm section, the drums, there's a lot of Deftones here, right? But not always, right? There's enough sort of like... Like, again, I wouldn't say that this sounds... This is definitely more alt metal than Deftones. It kind of has like a back and forth between the two. But I don't want to say I'm not like a fan of alt metal, but it's just always been one of those genres that for me, like, I always feel like it doesn't quite know what it's doing. I don't know, like, it's not heavy enough, it's not melodic enough, it just kind of is there. But having this dichotomy, this back and forth between that the shoegazier sort of Deftones core elements and a more alt metal thing, it works. It's also, I mean, like, obviously there are 9 tracks on the album, so I'm not going to highlight all of them. But this is also one of those albums, too, where, again, right, like, just on these 2 tracks, you might not get, like, a ton of the Deftones sound. But if you are familiar with Deftones, if you do enjoy Deftones, I would recommend giving this a listen, because as you listen through the album from start to finish, you'll like keep coming back to, you're like, that right there, that's got that sound, that's got that sound. So, but it's never pushed in your face, right? It's always just like those little moments where your spidey sense goes off or whatever. But anyway, a nice release out of Vladivostok. We've actually had quite a bit coming out of Vladivostok so far this year. I honestly cannot remember. I know there was a group just last week that we talked about from there as well, on the indie, like the art rock end of things, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But there've been at least like 4 or 5 releases out of there. So this is quite different from the other ones, but regardless, this is the album Waiting Room. The group is Chrome FM. And that's the album artwork one last time. All right, final 4. We're getting there. Kind of moving back to the electronic end of things. This is the album Dark Idols by the artist Dirty Paws. This is pretty straightforward. It's like kind of witch house or a dark synthwave, depending on the track. There are elements of funk music, Phonk. Also some tracks on this album that have like the chopped and screwed Dirty South types of hip hop samples, like from the old Houston days back in the early 2000s. And then obviously too, any sort of dark electronic music in Russia in 2026 or 2025 or 2024, it doesn't matter. Crystal Castles. There are moments on this album too, where you're just like, there's Alice Glass. Well, without Alice Glass, but like Dirty Sprite, the chopped and screwed Dirty South, it's kind of right on the nose, right? And there's that kind of like darker synthwave thing going on. I mean, like, this is, I don't, this just, like, came to mind, but, and I don't mean this in an insulting way. This is the type of music that would be used for, like, TikTok edits of Ryan Gosling from the movie Drive. You can just imagine, right? Like, Locked Club is really good, yeah. Here's a little bit of that kind of more witch house sound, right? It obviously is, I don't want to say it's all over the place. It does have like kind of like that brooding, darker atmosphere across this album. But again, if we're just talking about like funk, synthwave, witch house, even stuff a little closer to Crystal Castles, there is variation across the tracks, and that variation also kind of makes it a little bit more of an interesting listen. It doesn't feel like super repetitive. Не то, что я шарю, это просто я уже делаю это, ну как, на стримах, это уже не третий, второй год, так что... Так что то, что было в прошлом году и пока в этом году, я как-то уже до хрена послушал, даже больше, чем надо было. Ну, как-то так. I guess you could even say like a little bit like chip tune, right? Like some dark chip tune or something. It's not really chip tune, but it's got the energy. Шпион просто. Шпион. Самый настоящий вообще. So yeah, if you're, I don't know, I'm a big fan of the dark electro stuff, and so much of it is bad, right? And kind of derivative. And when I first started listening to Dark Idols here, I kind of thought that was going to be the case. But it didn't. It kind of panned out, and there's a lot here. Not everything hits, to be sure. But there is a lot of good stuff here. So if you're into that kind of witch house or a dark synthwave or funk, or like any of those sort of like darker electronic things, you're probably going to find some stuff here and have a good time. So that is the album Dark Idols by Dirty Paws. But да, американец. No, это был 100%. All right, final three right now. A little stupid, I'll give the answer in just a bit here. But we're coming up here. This is the mini album and a very short 23 minutes long. Субъект номер 2. This is from the group Wolves out of Samara. So I feel like it's one of those emo, right? Emo originally came out of the hardcore scene, right? It came out of the hardcore punk scene. Emo came out of that. But over the years, the two genres have kind of drifted apart to the point where people, like what people recognize as emo music, both in Russia and the United States, because emo in the United States and emo in Russia are also kind of different, just kind of going to put that out there. But regardless, what most people recognize as emo and hardcore music feel like they are worlds apart at this point in time. But Wolves here, which is a group that has been doing this for about 15 years now. I think their first album came out in 2012. Out of Samara, I should also mention too. These guys have not forgotten, evidently, that link between hardcore and emo. Now, obviously, if this group has been around for almost 15 years, they have a bit of a back catalog. I am not familiar with it. I was reading about it online, kind of reading what other people had to say about it. The biggest complaint that people had with this album is that it wasn't raw enough or hungry enough. So basically, the artists are just not young and poor anymore. They've grown up and they've kind of matured a little bit. That just typically happens. Like, look at Converge, for example. Converge's old albums versus like modern Converge, right? Much different. But this is still like a really solid sound. Oh yeah, that makes sense. I think it's nice though, because like there's the heavier hardcore parts, but the like more traditional, like the more modern emo sound also fits in there well. And there is that space, right? Like in the guitars and in the vocals that, like, a lot of times if you're not into hardcore music, it can be overwhelming. But here there is a bit of a balance for people who like are more into emo maybe, and you know, kind of it's just like a really solid release. So yo, Samara on the map. What's up, little stupid? There we go. Pretty good album artwork too. Really like simple, but it works. Like the way that the tattoos kind of, you know, merge together and that. So this has like a more classic, kind of heavier emo sound, right? Just like transition right into that hardcore without missing a beat. We pull it back again. We kind of it's just got like a good level, a good mix. Like, I don't know, it never feels overwhelming. Even the production's pretty solid too. Like, none of the instruments overwhelm. Like, there's never too much of any one instrument. The balance is really nice on the whole. I mean, hardcore. You gotta have the hardcore punk. What's kind of interesting is, like, I was never a huge fan of hardcore and this type of, like, I love Hatebreed and stuff like that, but never was a huge fan of this genre. But Russia has a really good, like, kind of hardcore scene. Speaking of Samara has a, there was another group from earlier this year out of Samara that was also doing the hardcore thing. Fanar, I think is the name of the group. Yeah. Fanar, I'm pretty sure, is the one out of Samara also, who's like that hardcore thing going on, so. Yep. Fanar. I'm gonna let this one play out for just a little bit. Тишина — это звук is silence is a sound. It's kind of a gimmick, but the lyrics he's screaming there at the very end too are like the lights can go out at any moment. But in the age of stream, like obviously as somebody who grew up with CDs, I'm well accustomed to the idea of like there being dead space on the end of a track and there being like hidden songs, right? Like y'all remember the hidden tracks at the end of the final song? You had like, or like there'd be like track 99 and you had to like skip all the way to it. This is it though, it's just dead silence, right? And in a streaming era, right, where somebody's just like, no, leave a minute and 20 seconds basically of dead silence at the end of it, because like that's the name of the song, silence is a sound. Like it's well executed. It's a really good way to end. It kind of ends on like so abruptly, but it works really, really well. So I don't know. Again, not like a big hardcore guy typically, but it's done really well. I would say tracks 3 and 6 are instrumental. 6 is a like almost a piano interlude. 3 is a little bit more, there's like some scratching on the turntables and stuff. And then the first 2 tracks are definitely a little bit more in line with like what we would consider emo, a little bit less on the hardcore thing. But overall, it's like, it's a nice mix. It works well. It's good. The pacing is well done. It's just like, it's a nice heavy album, but it's not too much. And wasn't able to make out all of the lyrics, mind you, but the lyrics are also like, you know, pretty traditional hardcore stuff, but kind of philosophical at their own beat. So that is the mini album here, Субъект номер 2, Subject number 2 from the group Wolves. All right, 2 left. We got another mini album here. This is the one Rebound from the artist Ikea Flower. This is like my favorite type of electronic music. It's that kind of dancey, bouncy IDM. Something like Fortet meets Burial, right? Like future garage, lo-fi house, that type of stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about it. This is the artist's 5th album. So there's a pretty solid back catalog. This is just that kind of like good music to listen to. Like you put on some headphones and you go for a walk around the city in the evening. It's got like that type of energy. So not like the rainy city, but in the summertime, right? Like when the sky is still light and there's still movement going on. It's got that type of energy. So album artwork is whatever. That's fine. Like that weird syncopated beat is very much a Burial thing. Kiyu sounds familiar. Also, computer, what are we doing? I don't know what's going on with my laptop right now. Heyo. All right, there we go. Like, it's just bouncy enough, but it's got enough of the trappings of that, like, kind of future garage sound that, I don't know. It's kind of, again, intelligent dance music. Such a dumb term, IDM, but it kind of works, right? Like, it's dancey, but it's also, like, not straightforward. It's not too easy. When did Kyu put out the album? In June. I feel like I listened to Kyu. I know he was definitely in my playlist. I don't think I talked about him though. There's also, like, no attempt necessarily, and I think that's a good thing on this album, to, like, try to keep one unified atmosphere. Like, the tracks are just, they were just made by the artist, like, because he was just making music, right? It wasn't like, I want to create, like, this sonic palette and it's going to be representative of whatever. It's just, like, 7 tracks where he was just making music, and, like, yeah, there are some tonal shifts from track to track, but I don't know, they, like, kind of all work. Even the opening and the closing tracks, they're a little bit more subdued, but I think on the whole, like, that's fine, opening and closing. Even kind of got, like, the Dirty South vocal samples here as well, so. So, I don't know, I feel like it has been a while since there's been, like, an electronic release that has kind of caught my attention in this way. And I don't know if this is one of those that's gonna, you know, like, it might be a few months down the line I come back to this and it doesn't strike me in the same way. But for whatever reason here in July, again, maybe it's just the time of the year. Like I said, this feels kind of like that summer evening, walking around the city type of, like, thinking on, like, reflecting on your day, right, after a long day, kind of all of that stuff. But it's got, like, a chaotic energy, and it works right now, and I really like it. It's kind of bouncy, and I think there's something to it. But so yeah, that is the mini album here, Rebound, from the artist Ikea Flower. All right, that leaves us. That kind of brings us to the final one, the the big one of the week, the one that actually came out at the start of the month, but like I said, I wasn't listening to Russian music, or I wasn't listening to July music for the first part of the month. I was still listening to like stuff from May and June. So this is Militantum from the artist Тёмный Принц. Now, Тёмный Принц is an artist that we have encountered before, but I actually have some stuff to say about this album. And just this album got me thinking quite a bit. So I'm going to do a little spiel here. I'm kind of like on my poor man's pitchfork throne right here. So give me a moment, right? So anytime an artist takes a significant step away from the sound that made them famous, earned them their fans, there's going to be backlash coming in one form or another. Sometimes it's warranted, right? We can all point at, for example, Lulu, when Metallica teamed up with Lou Reed, and everybody was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? What was that? Sometimes it's not as warranted. A really good example would be Avenged Sevenfold's recent EP, where it was like electronic music. Like, yeah, it's not your traditional Avenged Sevenfold sound, but it's not bad. Just like kind of follow the artist. With this backlash, it's typically connected to a situation where the artists are trying to do something different. Like they're trying to step away from their tried and true sound. And on the one hand, the fans are getting angry or they're upset because it's not the sound that they came to the artist for, right? Like they expect a specific sound. They came to the new album and they're not getting it. At the same time, though, you also understand the artists, because artists don't want to be pigeonholed and like, kind of like stuck into a specific sound that they have to do. Like, God forbid, look at what happened to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, right? Like when artists fall into that, then they're kind of stuck, right? And so there is some logic to both sides. I do think, obviously, fans should be a little bit more open-minded. A good example of this would be Slipknot. When Slipknot's second album, Iowa, came out, it was a pretty stark departure, at least for as much as Slipknot could do, from their self-titled to Iowa. But nowadays, Iowa is probably seen as like their greatest album, or one of their greatest albums, right? And so it's one of those things where sometimes you kind of have to like give it a little bit of time. It's going to be something new. It's going to be something different. Now, obviously, when that shift in sound comes from the debut to the sophomore album, it's usually not as jarring. And like I said, it can sometimes end up becoming a more loved release than the original. So obviously now, Тёмный Принц, which translates as Dark Prince. Last year, he put out, he was kind of like the SoundCloud Russian archive core hyper pop rap. His debut release last year made a bit of a splash here, music wise. I know I talked about it. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I saw what it was going for. I didn't really get why it was considered rap. It didn't really feel like a rap release to me. This doesn't really feel like a rap release to me either. This feels like a pop album, even though it is technically labeled typically as a rap album. The album last year also, like, if there was a Russian equivalent to Pitchfork, it would have been like best new music here, basically one of those things. So when this album dropped and the sound got switched up a little bit, it has higher production value now. It was originally supposed to be a concept album about like a future where the society is controlled by machines type of stuff. Although, a little stupid, as I understand, it kind of got abandoned. Like the overall atmosphere from that plot stayed with the album, but like there is no overarching story through the tracks, as far as I understand. So we got higher production value, kind of maybe sort of a conceptual album here about humans being like ruled by machines, a dystopian type of thing. Some bigger names in the Russian music scene, like for example, we have Saluki here. And then honestly, music that oftentimes will remind you of Kanye West or Daft Punk. I even was reminded of one of my favorite electronic groups, Mastercraft, from time to time. Plus, the album artwork references a Japanese composer who is most known nowadays for being the person who wrote the soundtrack to the anime Berserker. It's just like, there's so much going on with this album versus the very, very simplistic SoundCloud archive core sound, the roots of this artist, Tёмный Принц, that it's really no surprise that there was a bit of some backlash, right? Like people, like, not necessarily that he sold out, but it's just dumb, it's empty, it's vapid, it's something like that. I don't agree with those takes. I'm just gonna be completely honest. There are a lot of moments on this album where it does feel like Tёмный Принц is kind of biting some of those artists. Like, there definitely are moments where you're just like, damn, that is Kanye or Daft Punk, or that moment in time when Kanye was working with Daft Punk, right? Like, or like doing the better, harder, faster, stronger type thing. There's also a lot of vocoder on this album, which I saw a lot of people online being idiots and saying it was auto-tune. It's not auto-tune, it's vocoder. It's like that little, I don't know what the hell, it's like that weird little box that your voice goes through and it like digitizes it. It's not auto-tune, it's a vocoder. But like, the era of Kanye that this is referencing, if that is true, the Daft Punk references, there is still that archive core sound here. It's all working together, and I don't know, it works. Let me just play a little bit of this first. I've been yabbering for too long. The vocals too are much cleaner on this album. But you can't hear this and be like, not recognize Kanye in like the drums. But like, we all recognize that Kanye 20 years ago, 15 years ago was like at the top of the game, like he was the king of the music industry realistically. So referencing that sound is not a bad thing. It's probably a good thing. Is this auto-tune? Yeah, probably. But like, you hear how much is going on this track. The vocals in the background, the like sort of choir type thing. I really don't understand. Not every single track on this album hits. I'm gonna be completely honest. But I think on the whole, like, this is one of those albums, it is 17 tracks long, and this is something that I'm gonna talk about a little bit. But it's only 34 minutes long. This is not a long listen, so you turn it on, and as you go through it, it kind of works. There are a few hiccups, right? There are a few tracks, but even the tracks that like I'm not a huge fan of, again, kind of a little bit of that, I don't know. I hear a lot of Kanye here. Maybe I'm hallucinating it. Not like exactly, but just like somebody who's been influenced by him as an artist. I don't even have a problem with the auto-tune because there is just like a very electronic sound to this whole album. Like, it doesn't feel out of place in any sort of way. There's the Daft Punk, right? But you can hear the distortion here, right? It's not actually this track, but like, man, which track is it? No, it's not that one. Hold up. This is the one that sounds like 100% like Mastercraft. This might actually just be like a rip-off of Mastercraft. But I love Mastercraft. So again, it's like one of those things where, like, if I was Mastercraft, I might be pissed, but like, we're back to kind of this is the vocoder, right? And when you listen to this, you can kind of see how this could have been a concept album about like a, you know, mankind ruled by machines. Oh, I got it. But this is kind of right, like, there are these moments where it's not like there's enough variation across these 17 tracks also that it never feels like it's just like, okay, another robot song or whatever. Like, there are moments of that old sort of heavy distortion archive core. There are these more sweeping tracks. There are tracks too that are like pretty much just acoustic guitar. If anything, I swear to, I cannot. I'm not gonna remember which one the archive core is, but the biggest problem ultimately with this album, there are 17 tracks. Only a third of them break the 2-minute mark, and only one is over 3 minutes long. And that's a problem because, musically speaking, there are, across these tracks, some really good and interesting musical ideas. Ones that probably deserve a bit more development, time to breathe, right? Like, giving them some space and room to flesh out, right? Like, a minute 40 is just too short, right? My biggest complaint is just I would like to see this album actually a little bit longer, which might sound weird, but feels like, if anything, with this artist in the future, that's maybe the direction that he needs to move in. Like, to mature as an artist a little bit. Like, even 9 Mice on here, who I normally... Normally not a fan of 9 Mice, but... It will be interesting to see ultimately like what happens with this album in the terms of how people react to it a few months from now, a year from now, whatever. I think ultimately, I went back and I listened to Tёмный Prince's first release kind of while listening to this one. And you might be a fan of the first release, but I think it's hard to ignore, like, just in terms of musicianship, there is an improvement here. Yeah, it's not as raw and like from the hip as the SoundCloud thing, but like that's because SoundCloud is slapped together in somebody's bedroom, and of course it's gonna sound like it was fucking farted out of a tin can, because that's basically what half of SoundCloud is, right? When somebody advances from that and moves on to an era where they have access to studios and producers and like they have time to play around with it, then of course they're going to start to try to make music that perhaps sounds like the music that inspired them. And when it's done in a way like this, where the references are, at least in my opinion, like you can hear those references, but they never feel overwhelming. And over the course of the album, the sound that made the artist popular, that archive core sound in the case of tёмный принц, when that sound is still audible, when you can still hear it, then like I think it works. The sound is there, the roots are there, but there's movement forward. And when I was talking about giving tracks room to breathe, the final track is the longest track. And it's one that actually feels like a full fledged out track and less of a sketch. And I think, I don't know, I do hope that in the future more thought will be given to that. As it is, 17 tracks, 34 minutes long. It's still not a long listen, and it moves quite quickly because the tracks are short. But when you put it on and we listen from start to finish, it works. I think some of the criticism I can understand. Like I said, anytime an artist switches up its sound, or his sound, or her sound, or their sound, there is going to be pushback because people expect something going into it. But I think, as is often the case, this is always the case, we can go in expecting something, but we also have to kind of keep an open mind to what we get. And I don't think there's anything bad here. In fact, if anything, I would say I was pleasantly surprised by this. I ended up enjoying this a lot more. Is this a rap album? Not really. I think this is just a pop album that is done up in rap trappings. It has kind of hip hop moments in it, but it is ultimately a modern, like, Russian internet pop album, archive core, whatever the hell you want to call it. But yeah, I think it's a good album. I think there's some stuff there. It's worth a listen. I don't know. Again, maybe it's like the last one where a few months from now I'll come back to it and it just won't hit the same way. But I was expecting more of last year's sound, and what was presented on this album was something a little bit more refined, a little bit more mature, and I think that's always good. It's growth, ultimately. Is it the direction that people wanted or expected? No, but people on the internet are crybabies most of the time anyway when it comes to their expectations with regards to the arts. We've seen that happen with the cinema industry. Lord knows how many times. It's definitely nothing new with the music industry. So, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to close it out with MILITANTUM here from tёмный принц. Although I did see, what was the, hold up. I think Lil Stupid asked about Shalapay. I feel like I have listened to this artist before on here, but I don't know if Lil Stupid is even in the chat anymore. So I guess not. We'll close it out then. Also, Lil Stupid there in the chat was saying, like, after тёмный принц, you need to add laughter. I don't really know what that's all about. I've never seen that before. So, короче, a little stupid. Если потом ты это смотришь, не знаю, пишите, пожалуйста, я вообще ни хрена не понимаю, что ты имеешь в виду, добавить смех. Это типа, ха-ха, or I don't know, something like that. But, and also to answer his question real fast. Знаю русский язык, потому что, я не знаю, университет, потом живу здесь достаточно долго, так что короткий ответ. Leave it like that. Anyway, that's it. 10 albums. That's kind of typically what I cap out at. Yeah, there actually are quite a few releases here in July that I'm getting around to. A lot more metal than I expected. I am just going to kind of throw that out there, something to keep in mind for the next week or two. But I did actually... I don't know. I think it'll be kind of easy to get through July music, even though I basically did not listen to anything for a month. So I'm lying to myself probably, but I think in the summertime there are a lot of weaker releases, but at the same time there's also plenty of good stuff. And I hope next week we're going to get to probably the big release of last week, which was Saluki, but I guess that's for next week. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Everyone have a good evening or a good afternoon, whatever time of the day it happens to be where you are. Y'all take care of yourselves. I'll be back with more music next Thursday. I'll be back with the news on Sunday. But until then, yeah, I'll see you when I see you. That's what I say, right? Пока-пока.